Puerto Rico faces $5.4 billion of bond payments over the next 12 months, showing the pressure on the Caribbean island as it moves closer towards defaulting on its debt. With me down the line to discuss is Joseph Rosenblum. Joseph, the Commonwealth's budget director, said if we use dollars to make debt payments, we may not have the cash to pay for government services. But how did things get this bad?
It's a combination of things. One and foremost, perhaps, is the fact that the island or the Commonwealth's economy has continued to deteriorate, making the generation of sufficient tax revenues all the more challenging. And as they've continued to face these challenges, it's become more difficult to balance the budget. And so they've instituted various revenue enhancements and expenditure cuts, which in turn have turned around and continue to make economic recovery more difficult. There is also an element of insufficient data for investors to realize how severe the challenges are. So I'm talking about disclosure issues. And on top of that is an inability over the years to maintain strict budget control. It would pass what appears to be a balanced budget. Revenues would not develop as planned. Expenditures would exceed what they had planned. So all those factors combined led to the difficult situation that they're in right now.
The Chapter 9 measure to aid Puerto Rico seems not to have garnered any material momentum in either chamber, despite increased lobbying efforts. Do you see this changing?
I don't see anything coming out of Washington, at least currently, that would change that or change my impression that the passage of a Chapter 9 extension to Puerto Rico is likely anytime near. It's also important to note that if approved, even though we say there's a low likelihood right now, it does not affect all of Commonwealth's debt. It would only apply to a sub-portion of its outstanding debt. And that's because of how Chapter 9 is framed and who it is designed to apply to.
Some analysts say, from the Commonwealth's standpoint, defaulting on appropriation debt would be the least painful way to conserve cash, as the government can claim it has no obligation to appropriate. But in terms of credibility and good faith, etc., is it worth the risk?
That's a good question. It certainly is the weakest of the securities, and that as one reads the security behind the appropriation debt, it technically is not a default in the sense that there is no way to require that the Commonwealth appropriate what's needed. How badly it affects the credibility, it's a little difficult to gauge. I think everyone who follows Puerto Rico realizes how severe a situation it is, and that they're picking the appropriation first. I don't think that's a surprise to many.
Puerto Rico government has taken steps to increase revenues and lower expenditure, but it might be the case these measures could be in vain as early as September due to liquidity problems. So how do the next few weeks look for the island?
Yeah, I think the liquidity challenge is immediate and severe, hence the measures they have taken. Not clear that they will be sufficient to address that liquidity crunch. We are likely to see furloughed employees and things like that, in addition to the steps they're taking about not setting aside early set-asides for payment of debt service or what they're doing with the appropriation debt. But our assessment is even if they got through this near-term liquidity crunch, we see the budget challenges so severe and stretched over the near few years, even if they were able to get through near-term, that does not mean that the problem goes away for the Commonwealth.
Joseph, thank you for your time. Great to speak with you. Well, that's all from me for the moment, but keep clicking back to Dukascopy TV for many more exclusive interviews. Goodbye for now.